The silence in courtroom 4B wasn't just quiet, it was heavy, the kind of stillness that usually comes right before a verdict. But the jury hadn't even deliberated yet. All eyes stayed locked on the center aisle, because a tiny figure was breaking every rule of judicial protocol. Lily Mitchell, 5 years old, drowning in a faded floral dress that had seen better days. She walked right past the stunned bailiff. Her Velcro sneakers squeaked against the mahogany floor. Squeak, squeak, squeak. A rhythm of innocence marching toward judgment. Up on the bench sat the Honorable Catherine Westbrook. In legal circles, they called her the Iron Gavel. A woman who hadn't smiled since the car accident 3 years ago. The crash that severed her spinal cord. The crash that put her in a wheelchair. Westbrook's hands gripped the armrests, knuckles white. She didn't like surprises, and she despised disruptions. She opened her mouth to order the bailiff to remove the child, but something stopped her. It wasn't pity. It was the way the girl's bright green eyes locked onto hers. Unafraid, piercing, and strangely ancient. Lily reached the tall wooden barrier. She rose onto her tiptoes, just to peek over the edge. The courtroom held its collective breath. "Judge lady?" Lily's voice was small, but it cut through the air like a bell. "If you let my daddy go free," a pause, "I promise, I'll make your legs work again." A ripple of nervous laughter moved through the gallery. A few people shook their heads, whispering about how sad it was, how the poor kid was clearly delusional. But Catherine Westbrook didn't laugh. She felt a phantom tingle shoot down her paralyzed spine, a sensation she hadn't felt in 36 months. The hair on her arm stood up, she stared at the child, and for the first time in years, the judge was afraid. But to understand why a 5-year-old girl was bargaining miracles for her father's freedom, and why a decorated judge looked like she'd just seen a ghost, we have to rewind. We have to go back 3 weeks, to a freezing Tuesday morning, to a drafty apartment on the outskirts of Detroit, where the nightmare began. Robert Mitchell was the kind of man built for heavy lifting, but born with a heart too soft for the world he lived in. A construction foreman until the layoffs hit. Now he scraped by on non-union day labor. Since his wife, Sarah, died of an aneurysm 3 years ago, Robert had become a master of two things: drywall installation and hiding his panic. He woke up at 4:45 a.m., not to an alarm, but to the sound of wheezing from the next room. It was a sound that haunted his dreams, a high-pitched, rattling whistle, like air trying to squeeze through a crushed straw. Lily, her asthma wasn't just a condition. It was a predator living in their walls, waiting for the temperature to drop. And this winter had been brutal. Robert sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He looked at the nightstand, where his wedding ring used to be. There was only a pale band of skin now. The ring, the Ford F-150, the flat-screen TV, all gone. Liquidated to pay for nebulizers, inhalers, and ER visits that his catastrophic insurance plan refused to cover. Robert walked into Lily's room. She was sitting up, her small chest heaving, skin pale and clammy. "Daddy," she rasped. The word caught in her throat. "It hurts." Robert's stomach dropped. He checked the nebulizer machine on the dresser. Empty. He shook the emergency rescue inhaler. Bone dry. He'd stretched the last prescription as far as it would go, skipping doses, praying the warm weather would come early. It hadn't. He placed a hand on her forehead. She was burning up. A fever triggered the asthma. The asthma restricted the oxygen. The lack of oxygen strained her heart. A domino effect he knew too well. "It's okay, baby," Robert lied, smoothing her sweaty hair back. "Daddy's gonna fix it. Just breathe slow, like blowing out a candle. Remember?" He walked into the kitchen and pulled out his wallet. He opened it, hoping for a miracle. Maybe a 20 he'd forgotten, tucked in some hidden fold. Nothing. Just a folded receipt and 3 singles. He checked his banking app. Balance, $4.12. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at his throat. He dialed his boss, Mr. Peterson. It was early, but desperation doesn't check the clock. "Peterson," the voice barked on the second ring. "Boss, it's Rob," Robert said, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. "Look, I know it's tight, but Lily's sick, bad sick. I need an advance. Just $200. I'll work the weekend for free. I'll double shift, please." A pause, then a heavy sigh, like a tire deflating. "Rob, we've been over this. Corporate cracked down after the Johnson incident. No advances. Period. My hands are tied. My daughter can't breathe, Mike," Robert snapped. The Mr. Peterson vanished. I'm not asking for a favor. I'm asking for a lifeline. And I'm telling you, if I cut you a check off the books, I lose my job, then my kids don't eat. I'm sorry, Rob. Really. See you at the site at 7. The line went dead. Robert gripped the phone so hard, the plastic casing creaked. He looked back toward the bedroom. The wheezing was getting louder, a rhythmic, terrifying rasp. If he took her to the ER now, without the copay, they'd stabilize her and kick them out. With a bill he couldn't pay and no medicine to take home, she needed the albuterol and the steroids, now. Robert walked back into her room. Lily's lips were starting to turn, faint, dusky blue. She looked at him with total trust, believing Daddy could fix anything. Daddy could lift heavy beams. Daddy could fix the sink. Daddy could make the air come back. That trust broke him. Robert went to the hall closet. He pulled on his heavy Carhartt jacket. He pulled a black beanie low over his forehead. He kissed Lily's burning forehead one more time. "I'll be right back, sweetie," he whispered. "I'm going to get the medicine." He walked out into the biting wind. The pharmacy on Elm Street was a beacon of fluorescent light in a dark neighborhood. Through the glass front, he could see the normal world operating. A mom buying diapers, an old man reading a label on vitamins, a teenager buying a soda. They were safe. They had credit cards in their pockets and air in their lungs. Robert stood outside the automatic doors for 10 minutes. His hands were shaking in his pockets, but not from the cold. He was a deacon at his church. He had never taken a dime that wasn't his. But inside that store was a small plastic vial, a vial that cost $15 to manufacture and $200 to buy, a vial that contained his daughter's life. He looked up at the security camera mounted above the door. Then he looked at his reflection in the glass. A tired, broken man, a man who had run out of options. Robert took a deep breath, cold air stinging his lungs, and he made a choice that couldn't be unmade. He pulled his collar up to mask his face. He kept his hand in his jacket pocket to simulate a weapon he didn't have. Then he stepped through the sliding doors. The sensor chimed, a cheerful ding-dong. He didn't know it yet, but that chime was the sound of his life ending. We left Robert under buzzing fluorescent lights, the automatic sensor chiming his arrival and sealing his fate. He moved to the pediatric aisle, like a man walking through a minefield. His eyes scanned the shelves, bypassing the generic brands, locking on to the high-strength nebulizer solution and the steroid inhaler. The price tag seemed to mock him. Bold black font, $184.99, $62.50, more money than he'd seen in a month. But in his mind, he didn't see prices. He saw Lily's chest rising and falling. He saw color returning to her cheeks. Robert glanced at the pharmacy counter. The pharmacist was distracted, arguing with an insurance rep on the phone. The cashier was counting out change for an elderly woman buying lottery tickets. Now, his heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat drowning out the store's soft rock radio. With a shaky hand, he swept the boxes off the shelf. He shoved them deep into the pockets of his Carhartt jacket. Head down, he turned on his heel and walked toward the exit. He tried to look casual, but panic makes a man move wrong. Too stiff, too quick. He was 3 steps from the sliding doors, 3 steps from fresh air, 3 steps from saving his daughter. Then a hand clamped onto his shoulder, heavy, immovable. "Sir," a voice rumbled, "we need to have a talk." Robert froze. The air left his lungs. He turned and faced a security guard. Graying temples, tired eyes, a uniform a little too tight. This wasn't a cop, just a guy doing a job. But to Robert, he looked like the executioner. "Please," Robert whispered, his voice cracking. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He just crumbled. He pulled the boxes from his pockets, hands trembling so violently, he almost dropped the glass vial. "My little girl, she's at home. She can't breathe. I don't have the money, man. I swear on my life, I'll come back and work it off. Just let me take this to her." The guard looked at the medicine, then back at the desperate father. For a second, Robert saw it, a flicker of hesitation, a flash of human pity. But then the guard sighed, and his face hardened into professional indifference. "I'm sorry, buddy. Store policy. If I let you go, I lose my badge." He reached for his radio. "Dispatch, I've got a 1055 in progress." 20 minutes later, 2 squad cars arrived, flashing red and blue lights, washing over the snow-covered sidewalk. Neighbors peeked through their blinds. Teenagers stopped their bikes to film with their phones. Robert Mitchell, a deacon, a foreman, a father, shoved into the back of a cruiser, wrists bound, in stainless steel. But when the heavy door slammed shut, Robert wasn't thinking about jail. He was screaming inside his own head. Lily. Who is going to find Lily? By the grace of God, or maybe just thin apartment walls. Mrs. Henderson heard the commotion. The elderly widow from 4B, known for tuna casseroles and a nosy nature. She used her spare key to check on the Mitchell apartment, and what she found was Lily curled in a ball on the floor, lips blue, gasping for air, like a fish on dry land. Mrs. Henderson didn't wait for 911. She bundled the child into her Buick and sped to the county hospital. The doctors stabilized Lily with oxygen and intravenous steroids. They saved her life. But the system is a cruel machine. When the hospital social worker ran Robert's name and saw the active arrest record, the gears of Child Protective Services began to turn. Lily wasn't sent home. She was processed, tagged, placed into emergency foster care, pending the outcome of her father's trial. 2 weeks later, Robert sat in the sterile chill of Courtroom 4B. He wore a suit 2 sizes too big, borrowed from his public defender's closet. He looked small, defeated. He hadn't seen Lily since the night he walked out the door to buy medicine. And every time he closed his eyes, he saw her feverish face. All rise, the bailiff barked. Judge Catherine Westbrook didn't rise. She rolled. The whir of her electric wheelchair, the only sound in the room, as she ascended the ramp behind the bench. Catherine Westbrook was a legend in the state circuit, but not for warmth. They called her the Iron Gavel. 3 years ago, a drunk driver T-boned her sedan, shattering her spine and ending her marathon running days forever. The accident stripped away her patience. She viewed the law as a mathematical equation. Action plus intent equals consequence. No variables. No sob stories. Chaos took her legs. Order was the only thing she had left. Order. Docket number 44-902, Judge Westbrook announced, her voice crisp, devoid of emotion. The state versus Robert Mitchell. The prosecutor stood up. Assistant District Attorney David Chun, young, ambitious, wearing a suit that cost more than Robert's car. He didn't hate Robert, but he loved winning. Your Honor, Chun began, pacing smoothly before the bench. We concede that Mr. Mitchell's situation is unfortunate. But we cannot set a precedent where financial hardship justifies armed robbery. The defendant intimidated a security employee and attempted to steal merchandise. If we allow good intentions to rewrite the penal code, we invite anarchy. Robert's lawyer, Sarah Williams, looked exhausted, a public defender with a caseload of 200 and dark circles under her eyes. She stood, her notes trembling slightly. Your Honor, there was no weapon, Sarah argued, her voice pleading. This wasn't a robbery for profit. This was a father in a state of medical emergency. This is a case of necessity. Sending this man to prison doesn't serve justice. It orphans a sick child. Judge Westbrook listened, her face a mask of stone. She'd heard it all before. Every junkie had a trauma. Every thief had a reason. She looked at Robert, staring at his hands. Tears silently dripping onto the polished table. She felt a twinge of pity, then shoved it down. The law was clear. Mr. Mitchell, the judge said, reaching for her gavel, I am prepared to issue my ruling. The statutes regarding theft are not suggestions. She raised the gavel. Robert closed his eyes, bracing for the impact. That would end his life as a father. Boom, but it wasn't the gavel. The heavy double doors at the back of the courtroom flew open, slamming against the walls with a thunderous echo. The bailiff's hand dropped to his taser. Every head in the room whipped around. Standing in the doorway was Mrs. Henderson, out of breath, looking terrified and clutching her hand, tiny in the cavernous doorway. A little girl with messy brown hair, an oversized dress. Lily. She scanned the room with wide, desperate eyes, ignoring the lawyers, ignoring the bailiff, ignoring the stunned silence. Her gaze swept past the jury box and locked onto the man in the oversized suit. Daddy? She called out. And then she did the unthinkable. She let go of Mrs. Henderson's hand and started running down the center aisle. The bailiff stepped forward to intercept her, but he froze. When he saw where she was heading, she wasn't running to her father. She was running straight toward the judge. We left Lily sprinting down the center aisle, a 5-year-old missile, headed for the bench, ignoring the bailiff reaching for his belt. Lily, no! Robert's voice cracked through the tension, like a whip. He scrambled up from the defense table, knocking his chair over with a clatter. Hearing her father's voice, Lily skidded to a halt, sneakers squeaking violently against the floor. She spun around, abandoning her charge toward the judge, and collided with her father's legs. Robert dropped to his knees, burying his face in her messy hair. He didn't care about the jury, the optics, or the prosecutor watching with a raised eyebrow. He just held her. "I'm sorry, baby," Robert choked out, his voice thick with shame. "Daddy made a mistake." A big mistake. Lily pulled back, her small hands cupping his rough, unshaven face. "It's okay, Daddy," she whispered, loud enough for the front row to hear. "I know you were just trying to fix my breathing." For a moment, the courtroom wasn't a place of judgment. It was just a room, watching a family break apart. A juror in the back row dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Even Sarah Williams, the public defender, had to look away, just to compose herself. But Catherine Westbrook hadn't earned the nickname the Iron Gavel by letting sentimentality dictate her courtroom. "Mr. Mitchell," the judge's voice cut through the fog. Dry, sharp. "While this reunion is touching, it does not alter the facts. You admitted to the theft. The penal code is not flexible. There are consequences." The room went cold. Robert slumped, hope draining out of him, drop by drop. He began to pull away from his daughter, preparing to be let out. But Lily didn't let go. Instead, she turned. She looked up at the bench, green eyes locking onto Judge Westbrook. Most children saw the robe, the gavel, the height of the desk. But Lily saw something else. Since she was a toddler, she'd had a way of looking at people, really looking, seeing the things they tried to hide. She saw the shadow behind the judge's eyes. She saw the invisible weight pressing down on her shoulders. Without asking permission, Lily walked away from her father. "Miss, you can't approach the bench," the bailiff warned. Stepping forward, Judge Westbrook held up a hand. "Let her speak." Lily walked until her nose was level with the wood paneling. She rose onto her tiptoes. The courtroom went dead silent. Even the air conditioning hum sounded like a jet engine. "Judge Lady," Lily said, voice steady, devoid of the fear that paralyzed most adults in this room. "My daddy is a good man. He only took the medicine because I couldn't breathe. He loves me," Westbrook sighed, leaning forward in her wheelchair. "I understand that, sweetheart. But the law says we can't take things that aren't ours, even for love." Lily nodded slowly, processing it. Then she did something that made the stenographer stop typing. She reached over the high barrier and placed her small, warm hand directly onto the judge's cold, clenched fist. "I know," Lily said softly, "but I also know. You're sad, real sad." Westbrook stiffened. "Excuse me?" "I can see it," Lily continued, her voice taking on a strange rhythmic cadence. "Your legs don't work anymore. And you're angry because you think they never will. My daddy says pain makes people blind to the love around them." A gasp rippled through the gallery. The prosecutor, David Chun, stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Objection! Your Honor, this is manipulation. We can't have a child scandalizing the bench." Westbrook didn't hear him. She was staring at Lily, heart hammering against her ribs. How could this child know about the anger, the midnight rages, the hopelessness hidden behind black robes and harsh sentences? "I have a gift," Lily said. "No bragging, just a fact, like saying the sky is blue. I help people when they hurt. So I want to make a trade." The judge found her voice. "A trade? If you let my daddy come home with me," Lily said, her grip tightening on the judge's hand. "I promise, I will make your legs work again." Chaos erupted. "Order," the bailiff shouted. "Quiet in the gallery." People laughed nervously, whispering the kid was crazy or coached. David Chun threw his hands up. "Your Honor, please. This has gone on long enough." But Catherine Westbrook didn't bang her gavel. She couldn't move, because the instant Lily made that promise, a sensation hit the judge, defying every medical report in her file. It started at her fingertips, right where Lily touched her. A warmth, not just body heat, an electric current, hot, sharp, traveling up her arm, bypassing her spine, and settling somewhere deep in her paralyzed lower back. "Lily," Catherine said, her voice trembling for the first time in 3 years. "Doctors have told me I will never walk again. The nerves are severed. It's impossible." Lily smiled, not childish, serene. "Sometimes doctors are wrong. Sometimes miracles happen, if you aren't afraid to ask." She let go of the judge's hand and stepped back, looking small again. I'm not asking you to believe me yet. Just give me a chance. Let my daddy go, and I'll prove it. The courtroom held its breath. Logic demanded Judge Westbrook hold Robert in contempt, clear the court, call social services. Logic said this was a grieving child's fantasy. But as Catherine gripped the armrests of her prison on wheels, that strange warmth in her back didn't fade. It pulsed. She looked at the prosecutor, checking his watch. She looked at Robert, weeping silently. Then she looked down at her own useless legs, hidden beneath the desk. "Bailiff," Judge Westbrook said, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, Your Honor. Shall I remove them?" "No." Westbrook's eyes went wide, a mixture of terror and hope. "Clear my chambers. We're going into recess. Bring the girl. Bring the father." Then she looked straight at David Chun. "And counsel? You might want to see this too. Because if I'm not losing my mind, I think I just felt my big toe move." We left Judge Westbrook staring at her own foot, convinced she'd felt a phantom twitch of life in a limb that had been dead for 3 years. She called for a recess, clearing the chambers, leaving the gallery, stunned and confused. Now, 20 minutes later, the heavy oak doors swung open. The bailiff rolled Judge Westbrook back to the bench. She looked paler than before, lipstick chewed off, hands trembling slightly as she shuffled a stack of papers. But her eyes were steel. She didn't look at the gallery. She looked straight at the defense table. "All rise," the bailiff intoned, though half the room was already standing, desperate to hear the verdict. "Please be seated," Westbrook commanded. She took a sip of water, her throat audibly clicking in the silence. "Mr. Chun, I have considered the state's recommendation for immediate incarceration." David Chun stood up, smoothing his tie, smug, expecting sanity to prevail. "And, Your Honor?" "And I am rejecting it." A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room, Chun's jaw practically unhinged. "Your Honor, with all due respect." "I'm not finished, Counselor," Westbrook snapped, her voice cracking like a whip. She turned her gaze to the 5-year-old girl, sitting next to her terrified father. "Lily Mitchell, please stand up." Lily slid off her chair. Her sneakers hit the floor with a soft thud. She stood tall, hands clasped behind her back, less like a defendant's child, more like an old soul waiting for a bus. "Young lady," the judge said, her voice dropping to a register, vibrating with suppressed emotion. "You made a promise to this court. A quid pro quo. My mobility for your father's freedom. Do you understand the gravity of a verbal contract in a court of law?" Lily didn't blink. "Yes, Judge Lady. I keep my promises. And you truly believe, that you can do this? I don't think." "I know," Lily said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it had the density of a neutron star. It pulled everyone in, toward her. Westbrook took a breath that rattled in her chest. She looked at the gallery, the skeptics, the scoffers, the exhausted public defender. She knew this was career suicide. She knew the Judicial Review Board would have her head on a platter. But she also knew she had felt her toe move. "Robert Mitchell," the judge announced, "I am issuing a deferred adjudication order. I am postponing your sentencing for exactly 30 days. You are released on your own recognizance, into the custody of your daughter." Robert slumped forward. His forehead hit the table. He sobbed, a raw, ugly sound of relief. He was going home. "However," Westbrook continued, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "This is not a gift, Mr. Mitchell. This is a wager." Robert looked up, eyes red, swollen. "If in 30 days, your daughter has not fulfilled her specific performance, if I am not walking, you will return to this courtroom, and I will not just sentence you for the theft." She leaned over the bench, eyes dark, hollow. "I will add charges for contempt of court, fraud, and the exploitation of a minor. You won't be looking at 6 months, Mr. Mitchell. You'll be looking at 5 years, minimum." The silence that followed could crush a man. The deal was a lifeline, but it was also a noose. "Your Honor, this is insanity," Chun shouted, throwing his pen onto the table. "You cannot base a legal ruling on voodoo. I will file an immediate appeal with the—" "You will file nothing until the 30 days are up," Westbrook roared. "Or I will hold you in contempt, Mr. Chun." She slammed the gavel down. "Final. Court is dismissed." The gallery exploded into noise. Reporters were already sprinting for the doors, dialing their editors. Miracle Girl, the crazy judge, the impossible bet. Robert didn't hear any of it. He felt like the floor was tilting under him. He grabbed Lily's hand, gripped tight, bordering on painful. He pulled her through the crowd, shielding her face from flashing cameras already popping near the exit. "Lily," he whispered as they burst onto the snowy sidewalk, cold air hitting them. Like a physical blow, he knelt down, gripping her shoulders. "Do you understand what just happened? If this doesn't work, if you can't, Daddy goes away for a long, long time." He was terrified, not of prison, but of what he was doing to her. He was pinning his survival on a child's imagination. Lily reached out, touched the worry lines on his forehead. "Daddy, remember what Mommy used to say about the dark?" Robert choked back a sob. "That it's just a shadow." "She said miracles happen," Lily corrected him, "when love is louder than fear." Her green eyes pierced through his panic. "The judge is scared. She's scared because she's been in the dark for a long time. But I'm going to turn the light back on." Robert hugged her, burying his face in her small puffer jacket shoulder. He wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to believe her. But as they walked toward the bus stop, leaving courthouse chaos behind, Robert didn't see the black sedan parked across the street. The window rolled down just 1 inch. A telephoto lens retracted into the shadows. And across town, in her high-rise apartment, Judge Westbrook wheeled herself into her lonely living room. She locked the door, took a deep breath, looked down at her feet. She closed her eyes and tried to move her toe again, desperate for the same spark she felt in the courtroom. Nothing happened. She tried again, harder, straining until sweat beaded on her forehead. Still nothing. She let out a scream of frustration, grabbed a heavy glass vase from the coffee table, and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall, a million pieces of crystal, raining down on the floor. That's when her phone buzzed, a text message from an unknown number. Westbrook picked it up, hands shaking. The message was short, but it made her blood run cold. "We know what the girl is. If you let her heal you, you have no idea what you're unleashing." We left Judge Westbrook in the shattering silence of her apartment, staring at a text message that turned her blood to ice. We know what the girl is. She didn't sleep. She spent the night by the floor-to-ceiling window of her penthouse, watching the Detroit skyline shift from black to gray to bruised purple. The logical part of her brain was screaming, the part that graduated top of her class at Yale Law, screaming that she had just committed professional suicide. She had let a convicted thief walk free, on the word of a kindergartner, and now, someone was watching her. But as the sun finally crested the horizon, painting the city in burnt orange, Catherine Westbrook felt something else rising in her chest, a sensation she hadn't felt since the steering column of her sedan crushed her vertebrae. 3 years ago. Excitement, terrifying, irrational, dangerous. But for the first time in 1,000 days, she wasn't waking up to a life sentence in a chair. She was waking up to a countdown. 30 days. She rolled herself into the bathroom, executing the upper body pivot to the toilet. The move that used to make her cry with humiliation. Today, she did it with grim determination. She looked down at her legs, atrophied, pale, useless. "You're a fool, Catherine," she whispered to her reflection. But as she gripped the porcelain sink, knuckles white, she couldn't stop the thought whispering back. What if? Across town, in a cramped second-floor walk-up, that smelled of stale coffee and anxiety. Robert Mitchell was having a very different morning. He was vibrating with caffeine and panic, pacing the small kitchen, peeking through the slats of the blinds every 30 seconds, looking for police cruisers, news vans, or the black sedan he'd glimpsed leaving the courthouse. At the chipped for my coup table, Lily was the eye of the hurricane, methodically eating a bowl of Fruit Loops, legs swinging underneath her chair, humming a tune that sounded like a nursery rhyme, but off. Robert stopped pacing and looked at her. She was so small, so fragile, and he had leveraged his entire existence on her imagination. "Lily," Robert said, voice tight. He pulled out a chair and sat opposite her, clasping his hands to stop them from shaking. "We need to talk about what happened yesterday. About what you promised the judge." Lily crunched a red loop. "I know, Daddy. You're scared." "I am scared, baby. I'm terrified," Robert said, leaning in. "You told a federal judge you could make her walk. Do you understand that isn't like pretending?" Lily set her spoon down. She looked up at him, and for a second, Robert felt like he was looking at an adult trapped in a child's body. Her green eyes were heavy, filled with a knowledge no 5-year-old should possess. You're worried because you haven't seen me do the big stuff yet, she said. Matter of fact, the big stuff? Robert frowned. Lily, you've never healed anyone. Yes, I have. The air in the kitchen went still. The refrigerator hummed, loud in the silence. What are you talking about? Robert whispered. Remember Mrs. Henderson? Lily asked. Last month? When she hurt her back and couldn't get out of bed to feed her cats? Robert blinked. He did remember. The old woman laid up with severe sigh, screaming in pain through the walls. Then one afternoon, Lily had asked to take her some soup. I remember, Robert said slowly. You went over there for 20 minutes. I held her hand, Lily said, tracing a pattern in spilled milk on the table. I told her a story about a garden where the flowers sing. But while I was telling it, I pulled the ouch out. The next day, she was walking to the mailbox. A chill crawled up Robert's neck. He had chalked it up to good painkillers and luck. And Tommy, Lily continued, not looking up, the boy from 3C. When he fell off his bike, he broke his arm, Robert said, mouth dry. A green stick fracture. I saw the cast. I drew on his cast, Lily said. I drew a superhero with arms made of iron. And I thought about his bone knitting back together, like a zipper closing up. The doctors took the cast off in 3 weeks instead of 6. They said it was weird. Robert sat back. The plastic chair creaked under his weight. He remembered that too, Tommy's mom bragging about her son's Wolverine genes. He looked at his daughter, really looked. Was it possible? Had he been living with a miracle, too busy surviving to notice it? Lily, Robert said, voice trembling. Helping a sore back or speeding up a broken bone. That's amazing. It's incredible. But the judge, her spinal cord is cut, honey. Her nerves are dead. That's a mountain compared to an anthill. Lily finally stopped swinging her legs. She pushed the cereal bowl away. I know it's harder, Daddy, she said softly. That's why I need the drawings. Drawings? I have to draw it first, to make it real. She pointed to her backpack in the corner. Look. Robert stood, his legs suddenly heavy. He walked to her backpack and pulled out her sketchbook, a cheap spiral-bound pad from the dollar store. He expected stick figures, houses with crooked chimneys, maybe a sun with sunglasses. He flipped it open. The first page was Mrs. Henderson, drawn in crayon, but with strange glowing yellow lines radiating from her lower back. The second page was Tommy, his arm encased in blue light. Robert flipped to the last used page, and his heart stopped. It was a drawing of Judge Westbrook, but she wasn't in a courtroom. She was in a car, a sedan, and she wasn't alone. A dark shape sat in the driver's seat, a shadow figure with no face, and coming out of the car, jagged, angry red crayon lines, lines of force crushing the car inward. Robert stared at the drawing. The details were perfect. The make, the model, the exact way the metal had crumpled. Details Lily couldn't possibly know. Lily, Robert whispered, eyes locked on those ominous red lines vibrating on the page. You drew the accident. How did you know what the accident looked like? Lily didn't answer. She was looking past him, staring intently at the front door. Daddy, she said, voice dropping to a whisper. Someone is outside. Before Robert could move, a heavy boot slammed against their front door. Thud. Wood splintered near the lock. Thud. Robert lunged for Lily. Just as the door frame gave way, the wood around the deadbolt groaned, splintering under the force of the kick. Robert threw his shoulder into the door, adrenaline surging through his veins. Open up, Mitchell, a voice barked. I know you're in there. It wasn't a hit squad. It was worse. It was Mr. Kowalski, the landlord. Robert cracked the door open, leaving the chain on. Kowalski's red, furious face filled the gap. He waved a piece of paper like a weapon. You think I don't watch the news? Kowalski spat. Cheap tobacco smell drifting into the apartment. Police raids? Drug busts? And now I hear you're pulling stunts in federal court? I run a decent building, Robert. I don't need a circus. It was a misunderstanding, Robert pleaded, pressing his weight against the door. The charges are going to be dropped. I just need 30 days. You got 30 days, all right? Kowalski snarled. He shoved the paper through the crack. It fluttered to the floor. An eviction notice. 30 days to vacate. If you're not out by the 1st, the sheriff throws your stuff on the curb and tell your kid to stop drawing on the hallway walls. At the end, it creeps the neighbors out. Kowalski stomped away down the hall. Robert closed the door. His forehead rested against the cool, painted wood. He closed his eyes. Homelessness was now racing incarceration, to see which would ruin them first. He turned back to the kitchen table. Lily hadn't moved, still eating her Fruit Loops, legs swinging, seemingly deaf to the shouting match. "Lily," Robert said, voice ragged. "Did you hear that?" "Mr. Kowalski is loud because he's lonely," Lily said. Casually drinking the pink milk from the bowl, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Daddy, we need to get ready. The judge is going to call soon." "The judge isn't calling, honey," Robert said. "The judge thinks we're insane." He sat down, buried his face in his hands. "We have to be realistic. You promised something impossible. Her spinal cord is severed." It's like a cut wire. It's after the wire isn't cut," Lily said. She lifted her spoon, pointed it at him like a teacher's baton. "Her legs work fine. The problem is her signal." Robert looked up. "Her signal?" "Her heart," Lily corrected, tapping her own chest. "When I touched her hand, it was like touching an iceberg. She's so cold inside, Daddy. She's so scared of hoping." She turned the power off. Her brain stopped talking to her legs because she stopped talking to the world. Robert stared at her. It sounded like nonsense, yet the conviction in her voice made the hair on his arms stand up. Across the city, in a minimalist office, an office that cost more than Robert's lifetime earnings, Catherine Westbrook was trying and failing to work. The brief in front of her was a blur. She kept looking at her right hand, the one Lily had touched. It still felt warm. She grabbed her phone and dialed. She needed sanity. She needed science. "Dr. Harrison," the voice answered on the first ring, chief of neurology at Detroit General. "Jim, it's Catherine." "I was wondering when you'd call," Harrison sighed. "I saw the papers, Catherine." "Miracle trial? What are you doing? You're handing the review board the ammunition to disbar you." "I know," Catherine said, spinning her wheelchair toward the window. "But Jim?" "I felt something. When she touched me, a spasm, a heat, in my lumbar region." "Phantom nerve response," Harrison said, dismissive. "It's psychosomatic. You're stressed. You're desperate. And a charismatic child gave you a dopamine hit." "Catherine, listen to me closely. Your T12 vertebra was crushed. The cord is transected. You will not walk again. Don't let a con artist, even a 5-year-old one, break you." Catherine hung up. The doctor's words were logical, clinical, absolute. They were safe, but safety felt a lot like a coffin. A coffin. To clear his head, Robert took Lily out to verify the one thing he could test, her gift. They walked 4 blocks to ROA Zouvelt Park, a patch of dying grass, rusted swing sets, sandwiched between 2 housing projects. Robert watched her like a hawk. Lily ran toward the sandbox, merging seamlessly with a group of rough-and-tumble kids. Robert sat on a peeling green bench, nerves pulled tight. 10 minutes later, it happened. A chubby boy in a striped shirt tripped over a tree root. He slammed his knee into the concrete path. Skin tore open. Blood welled up instantly. The boy opened his mouth to scream, face turning red with incoming pain. Lily was there before the first sound came out. She knelt in the dirt, ignoring the blood. She placed her small hand directly over the wound. Robert started to get up. Infection, hygiene, liability. But he stopped. Lily whispered something to the boy. The boy's mouth closed. The scream died in his throat. His shoulders dropped. He looked at Lily wide-eyed, like he just heard a secret joke. Lily held her hand there, 10 seconds. Then she patted his shoulder and ran back to the swings. The boy stood up. He looked at his knee. He wiped the dirt away. Then he ran after her. No limp, no tears. "She's got the touch, doesn't she?" Robert jumped. Sitting on the other end of the bench was an older man, a Vietnam vet by the looks of him. Faded green jacket, eyes scanning the perimeter. He was feeding pigeons, but his gaze was locked on Lily. "Excuse me," Robert said. Defensive. "Don't play dumb, son," the old man wheezed, lighting a cigarette. "I was a medic in Da Nang. Saw a lot of men die screaming, but I saw a monk once put his hands on a soldier's gut wound, stopped the bleeding, just by breathing. Your girl, she's broadcasting on a different frequency." "Is it real?" Robert whispered, the question escaping before he could stop it. "Or is it just a trick of the mind?" The old man laughed, dry, rattling. "If the pain is gone, does it matter how it left? Magic, God, quantum physics. It's all just labels for stuff we're too stupid to understand." Then he leaned back, eyes still on Lily. "But you better watch her close. A light that bright attracts a lot of moths. And some moths have teeth. Robert felt a cold shiver, and it had nothing to do with the wind. Later that afternoon, Robert's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stared at it. The eviction notice? The police? The mysterious texter? Hello, Mr. Mitchell. The voice was unmistakable, crisp, authoritative, terrified. This is Catherine Westbrook. Robert almost dropped the phone. Your Honor. Is she there? Asked. No pleasantries. Can I speak to her? Robert handed the phone to Lily, his hand trembling. It's her. Lily took the phone with a smile, like she'd been expecting a call from a girlfriend. Hi, Judge Lady. Hello, Lily. Catherine's voice came through, softer now. I've been thinking about what you said, about the trade. I know, Lily chirped. You want to start? I don't know where to start, Catherine admitted. I don't even know if I believe you. But I can't sit in this apartment anymore. We need to be friends first, Lily said. Firm. You can't fix a connection if you don't know the password. Meet us at the park? The big one on Maypole Street? The one with the ducks? The Botanical Gardens? Catherine asked. Yes, I know it. Meet us by the pond in an hour, Lily said, and bring your drawing. My what? You'll see. Bye. Lily hung up. Robert grabbed his jacket. Lily, what drawing? You didn't tell her to draw anything. I didn't have to, Lily said, grabbing her backpack. She'll bring the one inside her head. Robert rushed to get his shoes, but as he picked up Lily's backpack to help her, the sketchbook fell out. It flopped open to a fresh page, one he hadn't seen this morning. It was a drawing of the duck pond. There were ducks, there were flowers, there was the judge in her wheelchair, and standing behind a large oak tree, watching them, the figure in black crayon, the shadow man. But this time, Lily had drawn something in his hand, a small black rectangle with a red light on top. Lily, Robert said, blood running cold. Who is this? Lily looked at the drawing and shrugged. That's the man who listens. He's gonna be there too. We left Robert staring at a crayon drawing, a man hiding behind a tree, holding a device with a red light. That's the man who listens, Lily had said. Now, an hour later, Robert stood at the edge of the duck pond in the Botanical Gardens, his eyes scanning every jogger, every dog walker. He felt like an exposed nerve. Every rustle of leaves sounded like an indictment. Every glint of sunlight off a car windshield looked like a camera lens. He kept one hand in his pocket, gripping his keys like a weapon, while Lily sat on the grass, tearing chunks of stale white bread for a flock of aggressive mallards. Then he heard it, the hum of an electric motor. Judge Catherine Westbrook rolled down the paved path, and she looked different. The severe bun was gone. Her hair fell loosely around her shoulders. No black robe, no power suit, nothing carved from ice. Just a simple navy sundress and a cardigan. Without her armor, she looked smaller, younger, and terrified. Judge Catherine? Lily called out, waving a piece of crust. You came. Catherine slowed her chair, eyes darting around, self-conscious. I said I would, didn't I? Robert stepped forward, placing himself slightly between the judge and the open park. Your Honor, thanks for coming. Drop the Your Honor, Mr. Mitchell, Catherine said, voice tight. If anyone sees us, I'm not a judge. I'm just a woman feeding ducks with friends. She rolled closer to the water. Lily didn't hesitate. She reached into her plastic bag and dumped a pile of crumbs into Catherine's lap. The green one is named Mr. Quackers, Lily whispered, conspiratorial. He's greedy. You have to watch your fingers. For the next 20 minutes, the tension strangling Catherine for 3 years began to loosen. She tossed bread. She watched the water ripple. And for a moment, she forgot the review board, the threatening text message. Can I ask you something? Lily said, wiping crumbs from her dress. Anything, Catherine said. Before the car hit you, Lily asked. What did you love the most? Not work, the fun stuff. Catherine looked at her reflection in the murky water. I was a runner, marathons. But before that, I danced. I studied ballet until I was 18. I used to dance in my kitchen when I won a big case. She let out a bitter laugh. Stupid, right? No, Lily said, standing up. Do you miss it? Every single day, Catherine whispered. I miss the music. I miss the feeling of flight. Lily extended her hand. Then let's dance. Catherine recoiled. Lily, look at me. I'm strapped into a titanium chair. I can't plie. I can't spin. You don't need feet to dance, Lily said, her voice taking on that strange adult cadence again. Your arms remember. Your neck remembers. Your heart remembers. Just follow me. Lily began to move, and it wasn't a child's clumsy waltz. She raised her arms slowly, curving them into a perfect pour-dub bra. She swayed like a reed in the wind. "Close your eyes," Lily commanded, softly. Catherine hesitated, then closed them. She felt the sun on her face. She heard the wind in the trees, and slowly, instinctively, she raised her arms. She matched Lily's rhythm, arched her back, extended her fingers, turned her head with grace. Grace buried under layers of trauma and legal briefs. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't a paralytic. She was a dancer. The movement flowed through her upper body, untying knots in her soul. Robert watched them, mesmerized. It was beautiful, and it was heartbreaking. "You're doing it," Lily whispered. "You're flying." Catherine opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face, but she wasn't sobbing. She was smiling, a genuine, radiant smile, one that transformed her face. "I feel," Catherine choked out. "I feel light." Lily stepped closer and placed her hands firmly on Catherine's paralyzed knees. "That's because you're waking up," Lily said. "Your legs aren't broken, Catherine. They're sleeping. They went into hibernation because you were so sad. You turned the lights off in the rest of your house, but we're turning the breakers back on, one by one." Catherine stared at the small hands on her knees. She couldn't feel skin-to-skin contact, but she felt something, a hum, a vibration, like a distant train approaching on a track. "I can feel heat," Catherine whispered, looking at Robert with wide eyes. "Robert, I can feel heat where her hands are." Robert opened his mouth to answer, to validate the miracle, but the words died in his throat because his gaze had drifted past them toward a cluster of oak trees about 50 yards away. The sun glinted off something metallic. He squinted. Half hidden behind a thick trunk was a man. Dark windbreaker, baseball cap pulled low, holding a long lens camera, pointed directly at the judge and the girl. Robert's heart slammed against his ribs. It was the drawing, the man who listens. "Lily," Robert said, voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "Get behind the chair." "What?" Catherine snapped out of her trance. "What is it?" "Don't look," Robert hissed, stepping in front of them to block the shot. "We're being watched. Someone is filming us." Catherine turned her head sharply. Ignoring the warning, she saw the figure by the tree. The man didn't run. He lowered the camera, slowly, staring right back at them. Then he raised his free hand and tapped his wrist, as if checking a watch. Tick-tock. "Who is that?" Catherine demanded, panic seizing her again. "Is that a reporter?" "No," Robert said, watching the man turn and walk calmly into the dense woods, disappearing like a ghost. "Reporters want a story. That guy wanted us to know he's here." Robert grabbed the handles of Catherine's wheelchair. "We're leaving. Now. Go to my place. It's not safe here." "Your place?" Catherine stammered. "I can't just... You want to walk again?" Robert snapped, spinning the chair around. "Then you need to stay alive long enough for her to finish. Move." Robert shoved Catherine's wheelchair toward the parking lot, his knuckles white on the rubber handles. He didn't care about potholes or the way the chair rattled. He just needed her away from the man in the woods. But fate had a faster timetable. That evening, the phone rang in the Mitchell apartment, a jarring, shrill sound in a quiet kitchen. Robert was trying to force down a bowl of pasta. He picked up, expecting Mr. Kowalski screaming about rent. "Robert?" It was Mrs. Henderson from 4B, her voice an octave too high. "You need to get to Detroit Gen-Oral. Now." Robert dropped his fork. "What is it?" "It's the judge," she stammered. "I heard it on the police scanner. There was an incident at the park, near the pond. They said her wheelchair went into the embankment. She's in the ICU." The room spun. Robert gripped the counter, mind flashing back to the man with the camera, the man who had been watching. "Is she?" "I don't know," Mrs. Henderson cried. "Just go." Robert hung up. He looked at Lily. She was sitting on the floor, surrounded by crayons. She wasn't drawing ducks anymore. She was drawing a maze, a dark, tangled labyrinth, with one stick figure lost in the center. "Lily," Robert said, his voice choking. "Judge Catherine got hurt." Lily didn't look up, didn't gasp. She just picked up a yellow crayon. "I know, Daddy," she said, voice eerily calm. She fell. "We have to go to the hospital," Robert said, grabbing his keys. If she doesn't make it, the deal is off. Everything is over." "It's not over," Lily said, drawing a bright yellow line through the black maze. "This is the test, the real test." Her spirit got scared. It ran away because the bad man was watching. Now it's lost in the dark. The bad man? Robert froze. You think he did this? I think fear makes people do clumsy things, Lily said, standing up. Come on, we have to go get her. The waiting room at Detroit General was purgatory. Fluorescent lights, hushed whispers. News of the miracle judge had spread like wildfire. The room was packed. Court clerks, bailiffs, neighbors, even a few reporters circling like sharks. When Robert and Lily burst through the sliding doors, the room went silent. Dr. Harrison emerged from the double doors of the ICU. He looked 10 years older than the last time Robert saw him. He wasn't the arrogant neurologist on the phone. He was a doctor, losing a patient. Doctor, Robert said, stepping forward. How is she? Harrison scrubbed a hand over his face. She has a subdural hematoma, swelling in the brain. She's been unconscious for 3 hours. We're monitoring intracranial pressure, but if she doesn't wake up in the next 12 hours, we're looking at a permanent vegetative state. A murmur of horror rippled through the room. Robert felt his knees buckle. It was over. The miracle, dead on arrival. Let me see her, a small voice commanded. Harry's son looked down. Lily stood there, staring up at him. Those unsettlingly ancient eyes. Honey, her son said gently, she can't hear you. And children aren't allowed in the ICU. She can hear me, Lily said, not backing down an inch. Her body is sleeping, but her spirit is awake. It's just hiding. It's hiding because it thinks it's safer in the dark. I have to go tell her. It's okay to come back. Harrison sighed. This isn't a game. This is a trauma ward. Doctor, a voice from the corner. David Chun, the prosecutor, still wearing his suit from court, disheveled, deeply shaken. Mr. Chun? Harrison asked. Let the girl in, Chun said. Walking over. I've spent the last week trying to find a legal precedent to shut this circus down. But I've also spent the last week thinking about Catherine's face. When she made that deal, she believed. For the first time in 3 years, she believed. Chun looked at Lily, then back at the doctor. If science is tapped out, Jim, what the hell do we have to lose? Harrison looked around the room. The desperation in Robert's eyes, the quiet plea on the nurses' faces, the monitors blinking behind the glass. 5 minutes, Harrison whispered. And if her stats drop even a fraction, you're out. They led Lily into the dim room. The only light came from the machines, beeping rhythmically, a digital countdown of a life fading away. Catherine lay in the bed, small, broken, a bandage wrapped around her head, tubes snaking from her arms. Robert stayed by the door, terrified to breathe. Lily walked up to the bed. She didn't look at the machines, didn't look at the tubes. She climbed onto a step stool a nurse had left nearby. She leaned close to Catherine's ear. Judge lady, Lily whispered, I know you're in the maze. I know the shadow man scared you. Then Lily placed her hand on Catherine's chest, right over her heart. But you promised to dance with me again, and promises are stronger than shadows. Suddenly, the heart rate monitor spiked, beep, beep, beep. Dr. Harrison rushed to the bedside, checking the readout. Her heart rate is elevating. She's in distress. No, Lily said, closing her eyes. She's running. She's running back. And then Robert saw it. Catherine's hand, resting on the sterile white sheet, twitched, not a spasm, a movement. Her fingers curled into a fist, and then her eyes flew open. But she wasn't looking at Lily. She wasn't looking at the doctor. She was staring straight at the ceiling, eyes wide with absolute terror. Push me, Catherine rasped, a dry croak that silenced the room. I didn't fall. He pushed me. We left Judge Catherine Westbrook waking up in the ICU with a scream trapped in her throat. He pushed me. But rewind 5 minutes. Go back to the moment before the scream, when the monitor was flatlining and Dr. Harry's son was already drafting the time of death in his head. 5 minutes, Harrison had warned, checking his watch. And if her intracranial pressure spikes, even 1 millimeter of mercury, you're out. This isn't a faith healing tent. It's a trauma unit. Robert squeezed Lily's hand, so hard his knuckles turned white. Lily, are you sure? This isn't like fixing a broken arm. Lily didn't look scared. She looked focused, like a bomb defusal expert, walking toward a ticking wire. Daddy, she whispered, Mommy said the hardest times are just the wrapping paper for the biggest gifts. Catherine is lost in the dark. I have the flashlight. She let go of his hand and marched toward the sliding glass doors. Inside, the room was a symphony of medical despair. The ventilator hissed, clack, clack. The heart monitor beeped, slow, erratic. Catherine looked smaller than Robert had ever seen her, stripped of her robe, her makeup, her courtroom armor. Just a woman broken by gravity and cruelty. Dr. Harrison stood by the monitors, arms crossed, skepticism radiating off him in waves. Robert stayed by the door, terrified he was watching his daughter fail for the first time. Lily climbed onto the visitor's stool, now eye level with the judge's pale, slack face. "Hello, Judge Lady," Lily said. Soft, but in the sterile silence, it sounded like a shout. Harrison flinched. "She can't hear you, honey. Her cerebral cortex is..." "Shh," Lily said. Not rude, authority. She placed her small hand on Catherine's forearm, right over the IV tape. "I know you're scared," Lily continued, ignoring the doctor. "The dark place is cold, isn't it? It reminds you of the car crash, the metal, the glass. You think if you stay asleep, the bad man can't hurt you again." The heart monitor skipped a beat, beep, beep, "But you can't stay there," Lily said, closing her eyes. "I'm building you a bridge. Can you see it?" Robert watched, mesmerized. The air in the room seemed to shift. Not a visible light, a change in pressure, a static charge, making the hair on his arms stand up. "The bridge is made of the good stuff," Lily whispered. "Remember the ducks? Remember Mr. Quacker's trying to eat your thumb? Remember how the sun felt on your face? When we danced?" Harrison stared at the monitor. His jaw went slack. Her pulse is stabilizing. "Okay, saturation is climbing. 92, 94. "That's it," Lily encouraged, her grip tightening on Catherine's arm. "Walk across the bridge. Don't look down at the scary parts. Look at me. You aren't just a lady in a chair. You're a dancer. And dancers don't quit, just because the music stops." 98%, Harrison muttered, tapping the screen like it was broken. "This is medically impossible. Her swelling should be suppressing brain function." "Come back," Lily commanded, and her voice wasn't a child's anymore. It was ancient. "Come back because the world is broken, and we need you to help fix it. Come back because miracles are real, and you owe me a dance." That was the moment. The finger twitched, the fist clenched, and Catherine Westbrook tore back into the world of the living. Her eyes flew open, wide and terrified. She sucked in a breath like a drowning victim breaking the surface. "He pushed me." The scream shattered the peace of the ICU. "Whoa! Whoa!" Dr. Harrison rushed to the bedside. He restrained her shoulders as she tried to thrash upright. "Catherine, lie down. You've had a severe concussion. You need to stay still." Catherine blinked, the panic slowly receding as she focused on the faces above her. Harrison, Robert, and right there, inches from her nose, Lily. "Lily," Catherine whispered, voice raspy. I was in a tunnel. It was black and cold. And then I saw a yellow line, like a rope. I threw it to you," Lily said simply, stepping down from the stool. "You tipped over at the pond," Robert said gently. "Do you remember? You hit the embankment." Catherine's eyes sharpened. The fog of the coma vanished, replaced by the razor edge of her mind. The mind that had put hundreds of criminals behind bars. She grabbed Robert's wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "I didn't tip Robert," she hissed. "I know how to handle that chair. I was stationary. I felt hands on my back, hard hands. Someone shoved me." Robert felt the blood drain from his face. "The man by the tree." "Mr. Chun is outside," Dr. Harrison interrupted, still checking her pupils with a pen light. "He's been waiting for hours." "Should I?" "Send him in," Catherine ordered. "Send him in right now." She tried to sit up, wincing as pain shot through her skull. Because if someone tried to kill a federal judge to stop this trial, then this isn't about a stolen inhaler anymore. The doors opened. David Chun walked in. He looked relieved to see her awake, but that relief evaporated when he saw her face. "David," Catherine said, voice ice cold, "get a pen. We need to talk about the accident, and then I need you to pull the security footage from the butt-tunnel gardens." "The footage?" Chun asked, confused. "Catherine, the park cameras haven't worked in months. Budget cuts." Catherine looked at Robert. Then she looked at Lily. "They knew," she whispered. "Whoever did this, they knew exactly where to strike." Lily walked to the bedside table and picked up a notepad. She pulled a black crayon from her pocket. "He's not done," Lily said, drawing a dark, jagged line across the paper. "The Shadow Man is angry because you woke up. And now, he's coming here." We left Catherine Westbrook awake, eyes wide with terror, screaming that the accident at the park was no accident. He pushed me, and we left Lily with a black crayon, drawing a jagged line of danger, heading straight for the hospital. But before the police could be called, before security teams could sweep the perimeter, something else happened in that ICU room. Something that would make every medical textbook in Dr. Harrison's library obsolete. Catherine, Dr. Harrison said, trying to keep his voice level, as he shone the pen light into her pupils. You're confused. It's the concussion talking. Paranoia is a common side effect of cranial trauma. I am not confused, James, Catherine snapped, batting the light away, her voice gaining strength by the second. I know the difference between gravity and a shove, and I know the difference between dreaming and whatever this is. She looked at Lily, standing quietly by the bed, clutching her notepad. I feel different, Catherine whispered. Not just awake. I feel ignited. That's the adrenaline, Harrison said, dismissive. Your vitals are stabilizing, but you need rest. No, Catherine said, staring at the ceiling. It's not adrenaline. It's heat. It started in my chest when Lily touched me. And now it's moving down. She stopped, eyes widening. She looked down the length of her body, past the IV lines, past the sterile white blanket, to where her feet were hidden. Doctor, she breathed, pull the sheet back. Catherine, please, pull it back, Harrison sighed, frustrated, but he grabbed the hem of the blanket and peeled it back, revealing her atrophied legs. Still, pale, thin against the blue mattress. See? Harrison said gently. Nothing has changed. The spinal lesion at T12 is permanent. You know this. Catherine didn't answer. She closed her eyes, her forehead furrowed in concentration. The room went silent. Only the hum of the air conditioning and the ragged breathing of Robert Mitchell, watching from the doorway, like a man witnessing a resurrection. Twitch, small, barely a flicker, the big toe on her right foot. Dr. Harrison blinked. He leaned closer. Spasms, he muttered. Involuntary reflex. No, Catherine gritted out, teeth clenched. Not a spasm. Me. She took a deep breath, hands gripping the bed rails until her knuckles popped. She focused everything she had, every ounce of will, every shred of hope Lily had given her, on her left foot. Slowly, impossibly, the foot rotated inward, then outward. David Chun dropped his notepad. It hit the floor with a slap, echoing like a gunshot. Oh my God, Robert whispered. That's not possible, Harrison stammered, his scientific worldview crumbling in real time. He grabbed a reflex hammer and struck her knee. The leg kicked out, strong, definitive. The nerves are conducting, he breathed. The signal is through. Catherine opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. Hot and fast, she looked at Lily. Is this real? She sobbed. Lily, tell me this is real. Lily didn't look surprised. She just smiled, tired but radiant. Your spirit remembered the way home, she said. And once the driver is back in the car remembers how to drive. Dr. Harrison spent the next hour in a frenzy. He ordered MRI scans, conduction studies, blood work. He ran needles along her calves, watching Catherine wince, a sensation she hadn't felt in 3 years. Every test confirmed the impossible. The severed nerves were firing. The scar tissue was gone. By the time the sun began to rise over Detroit, filtering through the blinds, the room was calm again. Catherine sat propped up in bed, exhausted but glowing. She looked at Robert. Mr. Mitchell, she said, voice steady, consider your debt paid. The charges are dismissed with prejudice. I'm expunging the record. Robert collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. But that's not enough, Catherine continued. You saved my life. You and your daughter. I happen to know the hospital's board of directors very well. They're looking for a head of maintenance. It pays union wages, full benefits, and full health insurance for dependents. Robert looked up, stunned. Your Honor, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Catherine said, and say thank you to your daughter. Robert pulled Lily into a hug, lifting her off the floor. Thank you, baby. Thank you. You're welcome, Daddy, Lily mumbled into his shoulder. She sounded exhausted. But we have to go now. Go? Robert laughed, wiping his eyes. We can stay a little longer. No, Lily whispered, her body stiffening. We have to go. The shadow man is close. Suddenly, the door to the ICU burst open. It wasn't a nurse. It wasn't security. 2 men in dark suits walked in, They didn't look like doctors. They moved with military precision. One took the door. The other walked straight to the foot of Catherine's bed. He flashed a badge, not like local PD. Judge Westbrook, the man said. Voice flat, professional, terrifying. We're with the Department of Homeland Security. We've been monitoring the unusual activity surrounding this case. Then his gaze shifted to Lily. Not friendly. The look a biologist gives a new specimen. We're going to need to take the girl into protective custody, the agent said, for national security purposes. Robert stepped in front of Lily, fatherly instincts screaming. She's 5 years old. She's not going anywhere with you. The agent didn't blink. That wasn't a request, Mr. Mitchell. Catherine sat up, swinging her legs, her moving legs, over the side of the bed. Agent, she said, voice dropping into that lethal courtroom register. You are in my jurisdiction. And unless you have a warrant signed by the Supreme Court, you will step away from that child, or I will have you arrested for kidnapping. Before you can draw your weapon, the agent paused. He looked at the judge, standing shakily, but standing by the bed. He looked at the defiant father. Then he looked at the little girl, staring at him with eyes that saw way too much. This isn't over, the agent said. He signaled his partner. They turned and walked out. But as the door swung shut, Robert saw the agent drop something into the trash can by the exit. When the coast was clear, Robert walked over and fished it out. It was a photo, a grainy black and white surveillance photo of a car crash. The car crash, Catherine's accident. But on the back, handwritten in red ink, was a date. Next week. We left Robert staring at a surveillance photo of a wreck, dated for a future that hadn't happened yet, while a Department of Homeland Security agent walked out of the ICU with a threat hanging in the air. But threats, like storm clouds, sometimes break before they hit. A week passed, then another. No black vans, no federal warrants, just the quiet, terrifying silence of a predator waiting for the right moment to pounce. 3 weeks later, the heavy mahogany doors of Courtroom 4B swung open. The room was packed, not just drifters and legal clerks, press, cameras lining the back wall. Robert stood in the front row, wearing a crisp blue button-down, part of the uniform for his new job. Head of maintenance at Detroit Gen Urul. Next to him, Lily looked like concentrated sunshine, a yellow Sunday dress. All rise, the bailiff bellowed, his voice thick with respect that hadn't been there a month ago. Judge Catherine Westbrook didn't roll in. She walked, slow, painful, leaning heavily on a polished ebony cane. Knuckles white as she fought gravity for every step. Click, step, click, step. The sound echoed through the hush, like a heartbeat. When she finally reached the bench and lowered herself into the leather chair, the gallery didn't just sit, they exhaled. Catherine adjusted her microphone. She looked out at the sea of faces, her eyes scanning the back row first, checking for suits, for earpieces, for the men who had threatened to take Lily. Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine began, voice steady. 3 weeks ago, a little girl taught me that the law is not the only force in the universe. She taught me that broken bones are easy to fix, but broken spirits require a different kind of medicine. She locked eyes with Lily. Today, I am not just a judge. I am a witness. I am living proof that when we stop being afraid of the dark, we can find the light switch. She picked up her gavel. Not a weapon this time, a tool. Now, let's get to work. As the docket numbers were called, Lily leaned toward her father. Daddy, she whispered, legs swinging. The bad men aren't here today. I know, baby, Robert whispered back, his hand instinctively checking the exits. But we have to stay ready. We don't have to be scared, Lily said, patting his clenched fist. Miracles make a lot of noise. Bad men like quiet. 6 months passed. The snow melted, replaced by the humid heat of a Michigan June. Robert's paranoia began to dull, worn down by the rhythm of a normal life. He fixed HVAC units. He paid rent on time. He took Lily to school. The photo in the trash can started to feel like a bad dream. Then came the wedding. It was held in the hospital chapel. A request from the groom, Dr. James Harris' son, the man who had once been the skeptic, now the believer. His scientific worldview shattered, then rebuilt, around the woman he had saved and who had saved him. In return, the reception was in a hotel ballroom downtown. Lights low, music soft, air scented with expensive lilies and champagne. Robert stood by the punch bowl, watching the dance floor. Catherine was dancing, not the fluid, perfect ballet from the duck pond, but intimate, She swayed in Dr. Harrison's arms, her head resting on his shoulder, the cane forgotten at their table. Lily, the flower girl, spun in circles nearby, humming a tune that didn't match the band's music. "Daddy," Lily said, drifting over to him, tugging on his jacket. "Do you know the best part about miracles?" Robert smiled, lifting her up. "What's that, sweetheart?" "Once you open the door for one," Lily said, looking at the bride and groom. "You can't close it. The door stays open forever." "That sounds like a good thing," Robert said, kissing her forehead. "It is," Lily said. Then her smile faded, just a fraction. "Unless something else walks in through the door too." Robert felt a cold prickle on the back of his neck. "What do you mean?" "The Shadow Man," Lily whispered. "He's not outside anymore." Robert spun around, scanning the room, waiters clearing tables, the band packing up, guests laughing. "Where?" Robert demanded. "Lily, where is he?" Lily pointed a small finger toward the center of the dance floor. "He's dancing," she said. Robert looked. Only 2 people were dancing. Catherine and Dr. Harry's son. The groom whispered something in Catherine's ear, making her laugh. He pulled her close, his hand resting protectively on the small of her back. Robert narrowed his eyes, focused on Dr. Harrison's left wrist, the hand on Catherine's waist. The doctor's sleeve rode up slightly, and there, glinting under the ballroom lights, a watch, heavy, black, military style, tactical. Robert froze. His mind flashed back to the park, the man behind the tree, the man who lowered a camera and tapped his wrist. Tick-tock. Robert looked at the watch again. It wasn't just similar, it was identical. Dr. Harrison looked up over Catherine's shoulder. Across the crowded room, his eyes locked onto Robert's. The loving, dopey smile vanished instantly, replaced by cold, clinical precision. Harrison lifted his hand from Catherine's waist and tapped the face of his watch. Once. Robert dropped his glass. It shattered on the floor, champagne exploding everywhere. "Lily," Robert choked out, grabbing her hand so hard she winced. "We have to go. Now." "It's too late, Daddy," Lily said, her voice trembling as she pointed to the ballroom exits. The doors were opening, simultaneously. Men in dark suits stepped inside, locking the crash bars behind them, and in the center of the room, Dr. Harry's son leaned back and kissed his new bride on the forehead. "I'm sorry, Catherine," the doctor said, loud enough for Robert to hear over the dying music. "But the experiment is entering phase 2.